All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. I love a Wednesday recorded audience. Great to have you all with us. We've got quite a program with some breaking news that will lead us off, and then I want to get into Venezuela and some specifics on the much talked about oil grab that is going on by this administration. This is good old school America. The ugly American smears. We seem to be able to wear them now cleanly. Post World War II, there was a sense that we were a righteous nation, not a perfect nation, our own problems, but fighting fascism and despotism and standing up for the rights of people all around the globe, sometimes, frankly, using that excuse to do some things that we shouldn't. But essentially, America was trying to find the North Star. Now I'd say there's a different star that is being sought, and this is a very different America that is being jerked in a directly opposite direction in an ugly, ugly way. But we can talk more about that in the minutes ahead. Today, I have really a terrific show for you. John Rothmann joins us on Wednesdays, which is terrific. The scholar, the historian, to kind of help put things in perspective. We are going to revisit a lot of environmental stuff. The return of our environmental eco-journalist Belinda Weymouth in hour 2, and in hour 1, a real special guest. I can't believe we got a hold of this guy who knows this world of energy and oil, the oil reserves, where they are, the types of oil, and then energy generally. I'm going to ask Mr. Global some questions about energy generally, because with the rise of AI and the emphasis on these data centers, there is an immense energy drain. And with this administration pulling away from alternative energy, it's a pretty tough spot that Donald Trump is going to leave America in when it comes to energy sources. So we'll talk to Mr. Global about that. He's brilliant, and he explains things clearly, and we'll get to him in just a moment. First, I do have, this is a comment from CC Ryder. NBC says U.S. seizes Russian-flagged oil tanker linked to Venezuela after a weeks-long pursuit. The Kremlin is accusing the U.S. of violating maritime law by seizing this vessel. This is, I believe, in the North Sea, is it? Where is
Russia
it? Yeah.
Russia was escorting this tanker, and it looks like the United States may have seized it. So this is a new international incident here.
Recklessness really defines American foreign policy now, and it strikes me that falls into that category. As I say, I'll get to a bit of that in a moment. I wanted to bring you up to speed as best we can on the breaking news out of Minneapolis. As you know, there was a tremendous show of force on the part of ICE agents there, 2,000 ICE agents flowing into the Minneapolis area. And I believe that these ICE agents are thugs. I think they're not particularly well trained. We've seen them drop the standards in every way, in terms of education, in terms of training, in terms of weight, in terms of every sort of metric by which they measure a quality of someone serving as an ICE agent. All of those things have been dropped. And what do you do when you get that? When you degrade that standard, you get guys going rogue, you get guys who are thugs, and they fit right into the thuggery that is ICE policy, with Kristi Noem showing up for the cameras in Minneapolis while they make some bust on, I don't know what it is, a Somali school teacher. It's the same crap. They don't really have any evidence of fraud, but they go in hot. They go in with their cameras and they record this, and then, empowered in this way as they are, they end up shooting someone in their car. Go ahead, Albert. Give me the breaking news, if you would, please.
Kim, if you could press play for me, please.
From DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. She says, quote, we just got this into the newsroom, quote, today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. She goes on to say, an ICE officer fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. She goes on to say, the alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. Thankfully, the ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, who are facing 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation, and we will give the public more information as soon as it becomes available.
Thank you for that. This is, again, you know, when I wear this shirt, Project 1984.5, and we have the merch, getmarkmerch.com, that reflects the kind of Orwellian age we live in, and that was just a piece of it, right? Somehow, this person who they've just jerked the life out of, this person who they've just shot in her car, apparently unarmed, she was the great threat. And then they make up these percentages, these ridiculous percentages, an 8,000% increase in the threats on ICE agents. From what baseline is that 8,000%? The disinformation out of this administration, the offensive press release that follows the wanton killing of this woman, it's nauseating to me. These are thugs. I've called them thugs from the beginning. They have a policy that is pure thuggery, and in my judgment, isn't defined by any coherence. And you've just seen the incoherence on the streets of Minneapolis. The woman killed was in her vehicle, says Sal the shoemaker, waving her arm to tell the ICE agents to pass in front of her car. One of the ICE vehicles stopped and attempted to pull her out of the vehicle. Again, this is just a comment I'm getting. I don't know if that's true or not, but this is, again, we'll get bits and pieces. This is just breaking news. But, I mean, if that's indeed the case, of course, it makes it even more heinous. So, look, that's the breaking news of the moment. I will talk more about it. I don't want to leave our guest hanging for too long. He's been very generous to come by on short notice. And as I say, this is it's a troubling development at minimum, and it's reflective of what I think is a despicable, incoherent policy when it comes to the streets of America and ICE agents.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So excited that this guy's coming by at this time when there's so many facts being thrown around about oil, about the kind of oil, deep crude, light crude, the oil reserves that are worldwide in different locations, but just the locations of the oil isn't enough to know. You have to know if there's infrastructure there, what's the state of that infrastructure, could that infrastructure be rehabilitated? We've talked a bit about the facts that I think there are some pretty serious limitations on the abilities of many corporations to go in the way the president is suggesting and sort of get that Venezuela oil situation back. But this is a guy who really knows. Matt Randolph's vice president and principal partner of Sentinel Energy. He's based in Oklahoma. He's known as Mr. Global on TikTok and other social media. He is globally recognized as an oil and gas expert, and he spends much of his time debunking misinformation about the oil and gas industry, and he explains things so beautifully. Please welcome him to the show. Mr. Global, welcome, sir.
Good to be here.
So set me straight first on Venezuela. Give me a sense of what we're dealing with, and the president is saying now that he wants 50 million barrels of oil out of Venezuela at minimum. I've read things that would suggest that would take an awfully long time to produce if you could make it happen. But give me a state of the state, if you would, please.
Concerning the 50 million barrels, they believe that that is the amount of oil that has basically stocked up since they put their blockade in place. So they believe that Venezuela continued producing and just storing oil in tankers and any other places. The fact that he said 30 to 50 million barrels tells me they really have no idea how much oil they've actually had to store away, avoiding the blockade. So, that's a whole nother thing. Another thing is, Venezuelan oil isn't sold on a market. There is no market for Venezuelan oil. So the US is going to have to create a market for that. You can't, Google the price of Venezuelan oil because no market exists for it. It's sold on the black market, right? But I read an article from Rystad Energy yesterday, which I really trust. Rystad, really great group of people over there. They are saying $135 billion over 10 years to restore Venezuela to what it once was, about 3.5 million barrels of oil production a day. That is the ball game if that number is correct, or if it's anywhere close to correct, because you can never, I did some math the other day on a YouTube video. At $100 billion, it would take oil companies 28 years just to recoup their initial investment. And that's not how oil companies operate. They typically operate to make a profit. That's how they became the richest companies in the world. Yeah. So it's just a terrible business case, regardless of the type of oil and all of the other things. It is a horrible business case to make, to have someone go down there. Now, Chevron can do some stuff because they've been there for 100 years. They don't likely need to invest a fortune. But for the other U.S. companies to go down there to invest this type of money into projects that will compete directly with the $500 billion they've invested in Canada. And that's what people don't understand. If Venezuela starts producing a lot of oil, that's going to depress the price of Canadian oil. It's its direct competitor.
They're competing with themselves, in effect.
Yeah. The reason Canada is an oil powerhouse is because Venezuela fell off the map. That is literally what launched Canada to where they are today. And so the expectation is that U.S. companies, which about 95% of the investments into Canada came from U.S.-based companies, $500 billion, that they're just going to walk away from that or harm that in any way to go to Venezuela is just ludicrous. And I think that's why Donald Trump keeps saying we're going to help them. We're going to reimburse
but that
them,
kind
right?
of bailout or reimbursement, he uses the word reimburse, I just don't see how that passes the smell test either, for just the reasons that you've articulated. I mean, it's a boatload of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any business sense for, so he's saying he's going to meet with oil officials, but again, as you've pointed out, it just seems as though, thank you for, the promise of reimbursement, but this just doesn't really pencil out for us. I wonder if you can speak to the kind of oil. I'm hearing about deep crude, you guys in the oil business, we see, barrels of oil, but not every barrel is the same, apparently. And deep crude is something that we are good at refining here in this country.
Yeah, the heavy
crude,
sour crude.
Okay.
And the reason our refineries are built for that is because for so many decades we relied on oil from OPEC. We didn't produce a lot of oil in the United States. We relied heavily on imports, and we structured our, refining network to process that oil. So Venezuela has heavy sour crude. By the way, it's almost identical to Canadian oil. And that's why it's a direct competitor, because it's not exactly identical, but it's basically the same thing. And it's needed, right? It's oil that we need. And so what we do is we take our light crude, I'm sure you've heard that, that we produce here in the United States, and we just blend it and we mix it with the heavy, and we run that through our refineries. So we can refine heavy, light, we can refine any kind of oil in the world. A lot of people think we can't refine our oil, or we can't refine this oil or that oil. We can refine anything we want. We have the most advanced network of refineries in the world. But the heavy oil is the reason why our gas prices, comparable to other nations around the world, are so cheap. We utilize a ton of cheap oil, and that brings down our gas prices. For the folks that just want to rely only on American oil, they say American oil on American soil. We could do that, but it's going to make your gas prices go way up because it's the most expensive oil in the world, right? And so, yeah, Venezuela has a heavy sour crude. It's very corrosive, which is why the infrastructure has been completely trashed, sitting there, corroding away. It's very acidic, has a lot of sulfur in it, a lot of CO2 in it. And so that's, why the infrastructure is bad, because of the corrosive nature of the oil.
Is it in Donald Trump's view, somehow this is the treasure that comes with this domination of this country? I'm hearing now Stephen Miller talking about Mike Makes Right, and there's sort of this suggestion that there are other treasures elsewhere in the world that we may be able to collect as well along the way. But give me a sense then, when you look at this oil reserve and this dilapidated infrastructure, if this really is a treasure at all.
So here's the thing, and I don't know if you've heard this, but the data that suggests that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world is not proven data. Now, we know that they have a massive oil reserve in the Orinoco Belt, but the United States, U.S. companies operated there for decades. And for decades, we had a certain number that we believed existed there, 50 billion, slowly climbed up to 60 billion. How did that number get to over 300 billion barrels? And the largest reserve in the world is Chavez took over, and suddenly they had a lot more oil than they ever had. And so how, like, the U.S. Geological Service works, how the EIA works, these organizations that doubt the amount of oil a country has, they just take the data that's reported to them by the country. They don't do any studies themselves. They say they do studies. They don't study anything. So a dictator comes in, and suddenly Venezuela's oil reserves quadruple overnight based on the data from the dictator being Chavez.
Okay.
And then
I didn't know that.
Maduro,
That's wild.
No, this is actually 100% true. And this is something that we actually uncovered because of this story. I didn't know this. Josh Young with Bison didn't. All of the sort of experts that sort of talk to each other, none of us knew this, because that number is not something that's typically worth researching. But in all of our research for this event that's happening, we discovered that their oil reserves quadrupled as soon as Chavez took office. And then as soon as Maduro, when Chavez died, he added even more. And so we don't even really know. They do have a lot of oil. I don't think whether it's the largest in the world really matters. They do have a lot. They have a ton. That's true.
Is there I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to ask you. So, I mean, if we stipulate to the fact that they have a lot and accept the fact that they have a lot, I'm wondering what the American strategy is. I understand that their clients were China and Russia in part. But apart from that sort of blocking, if you will, that you're now doing with those adversaries, China and Russia, what's the strategic play that the Americans see then in this Venezuelan oil capture?
So I think the whole play is strategic, and all the oil stuff is just like a way to sell it to the American people. We were trying, so oil for dollars. China's been loaning Venezuela money for a long time. Venezuela owes them tens of billions of dollars. They were servicing their debt with that oil. So when they say Venezuela's been selling oil to China? They haven't. They've been giving it to them for free to service their debt, to pay off their debts to them. So there's no monetary transaction there. They're paying China in oil, and China doesn't ever want to be repaid. And it's like a loan shark that you know, he's got however many points on the VIG or however they say that. The guy you can't ever pay off, that's China. So how China works is you get indebted to them, and then they come over and they take over, not militarily, but economically. They take over economic control of a port, and then oil fields, and then refiners. And so that was getting close to happening. That is true. That was actually getting fairly close to happening as China was about to take economic control. We've seen it do it to nations in Africa and other places around the world. So the strategy to keep China out of Venezuela is the strategy. The idea that we're all going to get rich on Venezuela's oil is just a selling point to try to get approval from the American people.
Fascinating. And
yes,
one other layer. Tell me and speak to, if you would, the petrodollar and the fact that oil and energy is purchased in dollars, and the world, particularly I would think now, increasingly is sort of over that, wants to get out from under the petrodollar. And of course, the Chinese would love to, you know, have the yuan, and every currency would sort of like to be the default currency. And the fact that it's in dollars helps us enormously in terms of our debt. Maybe you can touch on that. But speak to this strategic play, because I feel as though that's another layer potentially on this.
Yeah. So the whole petrodollar conversation is fascinating because people inside the industry largely disagree with people outside the industry on the petrodollar. As in, people inside the industry don't give it as much weight as people outside the industry do. And that's because if a country buys oil from another country and doesn't use the US dollar, whatever currency that country receives for their oil, they simply immediately exchange it for US dollars.
Okay.
Because it has, you know, and that's because the dollar's dominance doesn't exist in oil and gas. It's in the global financial markets, which are hundreds of times bigger than the global oil and gas markets. And that's what a lot of people miss, is that, you know, when people freak out because, you know, Saudi Arabia is going to sell some oil to China and China's going to pay for it in their, you know, yuan, it really doesn't matter, because that Saudi's going to take that Chinese currency and they're going to immediately exchange it for US dollars, because they can't do anything with China's currency. With our currency, they can put it anywhere in the world and do whatever they want to it. They can't, or with it, they can't do that with China's currency. So the petrodollar thing is real, but I think it's sort of over talked about. Like it's not near as important as a lot of people think it is. In my opinion.
Yeah,
right.
It's fascinating, because it's talked about. It's sort of like the grand conspiracy, like the really overarching issue. And you're saying actually, there's no there, or not as big a there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that makes it a great conspiracy is that there's just enough truth in it to validate it, you know. And there are concerns there if another currency can gain strength where it has the utility of the dollar, and that's how that eventually occurs. Yes, that's a concern. But, you know, China buying oil from, you know, Russia or Saudi Arabia in whatever currency really doesn't impact the petrodollar much. It really doesn't, because those dollars are just exchanged for US dollars immediately. But it could be the beginning of something that eventually impacts the dollar many, many, many years down the road.
Yeah. And
that's the best way I could. Yeah.
Is the thinking. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, now, unrelated, I want to ask you about energy generally and the draw on energy that becomes immense with the rise of AI and these digital centers, and the energy suck is so huge. And with this administration having essentially put the stop sign up on any kind of alternative energy, wind and solar, I'm wondering where that leaves us and how you game all of that out.
Yeah, it's really bad. So, fun fact, you may not know this, but for over 20 years, the United States added 40 million people to its population, 20 million homes, 40 million cars, basically added another California in population, and every living thing absorbs and consumes energy, right? Over 20 years, we added that and increase our energy consumption at all, which is an amazing feat, right? All those yellow stickers on and appliances and energy conservation, all of that worked fabulously when you consider the fact we added an entire state of California to our country and didn't increase the amount of energy we consume. The problem with that is that we got lazy and lackadaisical and not forward thinking, and we let the grid just fall to the wayside. The issue isn't the amount of power that we're consuming now. It's the fact that we can't move it through the grid. The grid is not built for data centers in the year 2026 and everything else we have going on. We actually have plenty of energy. We just don't have the capacity to move it. It's like having a million cars, but a highway that can only handle 800,000 cars. It's basically what we have. Electric lines are a lot like natural gas pipelines. Once the pipelines get full, it gets really expensive to put more gas in them, right? It's just supply and demand. It's the same thing with high voltage power lines as it is natural gas pipelines or oil pipelines. The problem really lies in the grid and the fact that we keep approving new massive projects like data centers to tie into a grid that can't handle it, right? The Biden administration tried to fix this with the infrastructure bill, but investing in the grid is the least attractive investment for people that invest in. Yeah. They would
politically, it's just it's not sexy.
Well, plus try to run power lines across 3 states and 14,000 landowners.
Oh, just okay. I didn't even consider that. You're right.
It is a nightmare, and there's almost no subsidies or incentives that a government can provide a company where they will agree to deal with the millions of permits and contracts necessary just to run a single high voltage transmission line across a few states. Because every so many feet, there's a new landowner. And so the task, or what we expected of investors, because everyone has to write a check for anything to happen in this country, the fact that we expected people to invest in the grid with incentives was very short-sighted. That the grid has to be nationalized. It has to be put under the control of the government. It is our most strategic asset in the world. It's right there with our military, and we're allowing private companies to manage it.
Yeah, and this is certainly an administration and a party in the GOP, and I don't mean to cast any aspersions, but just generally, they're keen on privatizing things. They'd like to see that they feel private industry can handle things better than the government can. So, that's kind of tacking away from the solution that you're suggesting. Where does that leave us? I mean, what happens then? Let's assume, because it's a pretty fair assumption, that there are no changes, there are no strategic changes to the grid, there is no expansion or nationalization of it along the lines of what you suggested, and yet the energy draw continues to grow. Where does that leave us? What happens?
So the hope is, and I want to stress the word hope, the hope is that the data centers themselves actually inadvertently spur investments in the grid, because the data centers themselves need access to a very strong, robust grid, right? And so, there's some thought process around, we have to upgrade the grid for the data centers. Well, it's terrible that we have to do it for them, but not for us. But there's a lot of people that think that, sort of ironically or accidentally, the thing that is causing us pain and misery, which is data centers, could actually end up being the thing that fixes the grid due to the demands it's going to place on it. To give you an idea of how far behind we are, we're adding 300 to 400 miles of new grid a year. And we need to be adding around 8 1,000 miles. So that's how
Wow.
far behind, and that, stacks up every year. That's, so I don't even know how far behind we are right now, but we've got
Do
to.
communities end up, though, I guess, at the end of all of this, and I guess there's no real end, but I'm just saying as an effect, a ripple effect of what you're talking about, do communities end up with more brownouts, with more blackouts, with more problems getting electricity for day-to-day use? Is that what happens?
So what we're currently seeing in reliability reports, I read a lot from the NERC. They report on grid reliability. The risk to that happening is increasing in every area. So the country's broken up in different areas for the grid. The upper Midwest is the worst part of the country for its risk level of potential blackouts and brownouts.
That's just because of the checkerboard quality of all these different private ownership parts of the grid, or why is that?
Well, it's just the amount of power that's being consumed there,
I see.
population growth, data centers, just everything that's happening, right? Upper Midwest, it's called MISO, M-I-S-O, is the area. It is the worst. The Northeast is really bad. High population areas with a lot of data centers are really bad because they're high growth areas too. People keep moving into those areas. Industry keeps moving. The grid doesn't change. We haven't, it's like you see this train coming at like 5 miles an hour and it's going to run over you, but you can't get off the track and it's still a mile away. That's what is happening. Like I've been watching this grid stuff for years and I see it coming and coming and it's going to happen. It's going to run over us probably in the next few years, but it's one of those things that is such a mass event. If you remember the blackout in Spain, was that last year? Like that, the whole country was in turmoil. And those people are much more resilient than Americans. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're not super, we're kind of lazy. We depend on everything. I don't know how we would handle a massive blackout across an entire region in the United States that lasted for days.
I mean, I fear that what you're talking about is sort of this phenomenon that we see play out in other things too, climate change and alternative energy, as I was mentioning. These are legitimate sources of energy that have now just been shut down by this administration. It's as though there's a denialism that has taken over rather than any kind of sensible strategy to address this. It's concerning. Are there any kind of bright lights in the world of building a strategy for the future that you see, be it political bright lights or governmental bright lights? In other words, is there any, or even some organization that you look to and say, hey, those people have their act together, and if they could just get a little more oxygen, something good could happen?
Anybody that agrees that we need to take a holistic approach to energy, I talk to and respect, right? What we're seeing right now is politicians satisfying their donors. The idea that we fight over sources of energy, like anyone thinks about how the energy, when they turn the lights on, when they walk in the bathroom, I don't stop and think, okay, I hope that's not coming from solar, because solar, that just sucks. You know what I mean? Like, who thinks that way? Every source of power has a place in our portfolio. Of course, there are types of power that are more reliable and better, and there's other types that aren't as good, but they all have a place in certain areas based on demand and consumption and all of that. They all fit. I'll be honest, wind is probably going to fall way back as far as reliability, but solar is going to be king. Solar is going to dominate everything. It's already starting to happen. So, but we need to take a holistic approach and just quit fighting over what kind of power. 40% of the world's electricity is generated with renewable power, by the way. This argument that it doesn't work is crazy, considering that 40% of all the electricity is generated with renewable power. And I say that as someone who spent their entire career in the oil and gas industry. I've never been some anti-renewable person. All of that came from the oil and gas industry being afraid they were going to be replaced by renewables. And I'm been telling oil and gas workers for decades, it's not solar power that's going to take your job. It's artificial intelligence, it's efficiency, it's everything else. It's robotics. That's what's going to take your job. You don't need to be worrying about the wind turbines. You need to be worrying about the computers.
Here, it's already happening.
And the industry is lost a third of its workforce over the last 15 years due to that. Not due to renewable energy, but due to efficiency, due to Wall Street capital now running oil and gas instead of those old rich oil men that didn't care if they lost it all. Like, it's a much more disciplined industry. Shareholder return is the only thing that matters, and that's why they're losing their jobs. So
I want to clearly you're right. As you say, you've already seen it happen in the last 10 years. You've seen it. In the last 5 years has been, probably a doubling of what you saw in the 5 years prior. In terms of loss of jobs and management positions eliminated by AI, et cetera. I want to point people to where you are. Where do you like to point? I can point them anywhere. We'll have a link to wherever you want. Where is that? TikTok, or is it? What's the best spot? YouTube.
I'm on YouTube. I love YouTube. I'm also on Facebook and TikTok and Substack. I'm pretty much everywhere. But my serious,
there he is. Yeah, go ahead.
My educational content that is more, TikTok serves its purpose. It's for arguing with stupid people. But YouTube, if you want to learn something, that's my YouTube channel, right? That's my Substack channel. So
that's where I'm sending people then.
Yeah.
Mr. Global, you can find him. There'll be a link under this video. And I love your stuff and really have. I actually was turned on to your stuff by one of our listener viewers, Randy. And since he turned me on to it, I've just been immersed in it. It's just wonderful. So it's really educational and terrific, and I recommend it. And I hope you'll come back and visit.
Absolutely, I enjoyed it.
Good stuff, man. Mr. Global, everybody. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, we'll, as I say, have a link to Mr. Global. You can find him and enjoy him as we do. Some good information there. I thank you, Randy. I don't know if he's watching, but good to have, as I say, when you guys send me emails and leave comments, I do read them. And so it's helpful, and I appreciate that. Right now, a quick cup of Coachella Valley coffee.
I wonder if he watches Landman. Have you seen that show?
No, I've got it on my list, but I haven't seen it yet with Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah,
it's really, really good.
Taylor Sheridan. Yeah.
Sam Elliott is in this current season.
Sam Elliott. Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, Coachella Valley Coffee, you can get at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com and use our discount code and get 10% off. Mark T is what you get. And then when you take a sip, you'll have that same experience. Oh, my God.
So good.
Find the grind. Find the bean. Find the taste that is perfect. You'll find it all at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. 10% off everything. Our Why Are You Yelling decaf comes out of Peru.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Albert. You can grab that at the,
Why are you yelling?
The Why Are You Yelling decaf is what I'm trying now in the new year to integrate into my, I fell off the wagon. My doctor said, don't drink as much coffee as you drink. And so I started to mix the decaf out of Peru, the Why Are You Yelling decaf from Coachella Valley Coffee. I was starting to integrate it, So it'd go half and half. And I started not to put as much decaf in, and then I realized I'm a drug addict. I'm addicted to the punch. But I don't think there's any real harm as long as he also said you're fine. You don't need decaf. He said just no more than 2 cups a day is what my doctor was saying.
How's that working out? How's that working out for you?
That's real.
It's
you just don't get it.
I don't. Anyway, do get in on the fun. It is a terrific place to find coffee, tea, spices. These are curated by hand. All of the roasting is done by hand. This is a small business that is wonderful, and they really take pride in the work they do. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And when you check out, use the discount code MarkT, and get 10% off. You will enjoy it, as do we.
Put that coffee down.
Yes, I'm excited about this next guy as well. So here we go.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Luis says 100 trillion barrels of oil from Venezuela to the U.S. The price of prescription meds down 900%. 5 million Greenlanders approve U.S. annexation. Stats that you can trust from the White Castle administration and their Burger King. Yes. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Yeah, I'm telling you, disinformation is on blast.
Big shout out.
That's why I like this Project 1984.5, man. You know? The arithmetic is what we, the state, tell you the arithmetic is. 2 + 2 = what we tell you it equals. Richard Delamater says, don't sugarcoat it with the hashtag. Every day we hurl closer to doom. Isn't that lovely? Thank you for that. But there's no one I'd rather hurl with than you, Richard Delamater, and all of my remarkables and everyone who comes here. This guy is a scholar, lecturer, historian, and author. He joins us on Wednesdays, our former colleague from KGO Radio, the brilliant John Rothmann, everyone.
Mark, I have to tell you, I loved the interview you just did. It was fascinating, insightful, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, I'm glad you could see some of it. He really is something special, and he'll be back. You are something special as well, sir, and I'm not just saying that. I'm astounded by this move on one level, the Venezuelan play that this administration has made, and even more astounded by the, I guess it's polite to call it a double down, that Stephen Miller did as he proclaimed might makes right, an almost 19th century approach to global politics and global domination. And I wonder if you could give me your thoughts on Venezuela and, again, this global strategy that seems to be very much a part of this administration.
First thing you have to know is it's not the administration, it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump calls the shots. Somebody emailed me and said, why do you always talk about Donald Trump? Because he has become the dominant force in world politics. Whether you go to the American media, the European media, it doesn't matter where you go. What Trump says makes a huge difference. I am appalled by what happened in Venezuela. I am appalled because if you can go into a country and remove a dictator, or for that matter, a leader, and do it with impunity, the whole bet is off for everybody. I think what Donald Trump did was appalling. Now, let me explain that I think Maduro is one of the most evil men who ever existed, and I believe he should be held accountable. But it is the people of his country who need to do it. Let me remind you, for those who remember Saddam Hussein, in the end, we didn't try him in an American court. He was tried in an Iranian court. He was found guilty by his own people. And that, to me, is critical. Why did we go in? Clearly not drugs. Have you heard Donald Trump or Marco Rubio speak about the drug crisis at all? The answer is no. It's oil. And you might say it's a very slick sales job. What they're trying to do is, frankly, protection. Look, let's be blunt. You don't give away all the oil that Venezuela is shipping to the United States because you just want to be a nice guy. Donald Trump is like a mafia boss, and he is saying, we'll protect you, we'll protect your country, but there's a price for this. And of course, as we now know, the Venezuelan oil is not going to make a huge difference. But let me point out, Donald Trump was not satisfied with Venezuela. He now threatens Colombia. He threatens Iran. He threatens in such a fashion that we have to worry. And may I say bluntly, the most important strategic alliance this country has had since the end of World War II is NATO. Can you imagine Greenland? Can you imagine that we may be at war with our NATO partners? Why do you think the Europeans are so upset? Because Denmark controls Greenland. Denmark is part of NATO. If we go into Greenland, it is a blow to the NATO alliance, maybe a fatal blow. Donald Trump's lack of strategic thinking, I'm so upset about it I can't even begin to tell you, but you may sense it from the tone of my voice.
Well,
any other president would, and he was right last night when he described the fact that if the Democrats take control of the House, and I believe they will, there most assuredly will be impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump, and may I say, well earned.
The strategic plays that you've referred to beyond Venezuela, Greenland and Colombia, I think you can include the Panama Canal. Can you see any coherence to this, or is this just a pure ego play on his part? I mean, it feels to me on some level as though, I think you rightly identify, we don't hear about narcotics anymore. The oil thing may just be a cloak to, to grab Venezuela. I wonder if you can find a coherence in this broadening of what he's calling the Donroe Doctrine, just basic American imperialism.
That was just what I was going to use, that expression that you just used, the Donroe Doctrine. I had to stop and think. I know about the Monroe Doctrine. What is the Donroe Doctrine? And that's the whole point. Donald Trump is prepared now, as president of the United States, to remake the world in his image, what he wants. That is not the way we were constructed. There will be a vote, I believe tomorrow, in the United States Senate on limiting presidential power. And I will tell you, it won't matter one whit whether that passes or not. Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, they don't give a tinker's damn one way or the other about the legislative branch of government. And what is Donald Trump really afraid of right now? I'll tell you what he's afraid of. The Supreme Court on tariffs. If the Supreme Court strikes down his tariff moves, it will be a huge blow to Donald Trump. And it's possible, and I believe legally absolutely clear, that the court should do just that. But now the Supreme Court will have to consider the implications for the American presidency. And there is another factor. Donald Trump doesn't really give two tinks what the Supreme Court says. And what will happen if he says, I don't care what the court says. I make the law. I'm the executive branch of government. And I think that is something that should terrify us all. The fact that the United States Senate and the House of Representatives have rolled over, even on this question of what just happened with the briefings. The briefings were long and detailed and, well, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, if I can quote William Shakespeare. That, to me, is another horrific result of the Trump presidency. We are approaching the first anniversary of Donald Trump's second term. And I could not have envisioned in my wildest imagination the things that Donald Trump has pulled in the last year. What is even more shocking to me is the fact that the Republicans in the House and the Senate have rolled over and played dead out of fear. But that's what you do, Mark, when you confront a mafia boss. And let me make one other quick comment, as long as I'm on a roll. I want to talk about the demise of National Public Radio. I want to talk about the destruction of one of the most important institutions that for 58 years helped all of us. And that was radio and the ability to speak freely. And I say this because the destruction of the entire public broadcasting system is completely a result of Donald Trump. And maybe it's too soon to realize that the destruction of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which was a hard, solid rock on freedom of expression, is something we haven't even discussed yet. And so I'm raising it because here's the problem I have every morning. I mean, you have the same problem with your program. I come on, I do 15 minutes every day on Around the Political World with John Rothmann. How do I cram it all in? How do I make it clear? I was up at the university today for a brief meeting, and someone came up to me and said, thank you, John, because we listened to you for 15 minutes and we get a sense. And I said, that's all you get. Do you understand the panic that America should feel and that the world is now feeling? Look at this whole question of Greenland. You have letters from all of the major European leaders blasting what the United States is doing.
Well, it's really a blow to NATO, and it makes you reconsider something that I think was considered right out of the chute as Donald Trump sidled up to Russia, and that was, will the NATO alliance survive this guy? I just don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem as though. I
Well,
mean,
he's
obviously
opposed
it-
NATO. I believe,
Well,
you will go
he's
back
back
and
and
listen
forth
to
on
our
it,
previous conversations. I said at the very beginning that one of Donald Trump's goals is to destroy NATO, and that is very clear now.
Yeah, all of what you said makes sense, and I think the concern and urgency is being played out, in all the places you described, all around the world. I want to quickly ask you about something that's happened here, and it's changed politics and the culture of politics in this country. I was making this point yesterday, and that's January 6th. I mean, this is today, January 7th. So yesterday we talked a bit about it in that kind of 5-year anniversary way that you talk about things. I'm sorry?
Did you look at the White House website?
So that's exactly what I'm getting to
It's
now.
1984.
That's what I'm getting to now, John. If you'd give me a chance to talk, why don't the guest won't even let me on my own show?
Why are you yelling?
Gosh. All right. Now, where is the listen to me? I don't want to hear you, Albert. We don't have that drop somewhere. I thought I
always pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
That's not the one I want. The other one, the listen.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
That's the one I wanted. Thank you. Now, Brother Rothmann, please let me get the question out.
Sure.
So here we are, looking back 5 years ago at a horrifying event in American history that it's being completely reconstituted and reframed. It was almost immediately after, and that is suggesting, as they have done on the official White House website, a revisionist version of what happened with the January 6th insurrection, blaming Democrats and the Capitol Police for the violence that left 140 cops injured, and 5 of them are left dead at the end of the week. And so the new page on the official White House website spells out a timeline of the day's events that's radically at odds with reality. It claims it was the Democrats who, quote, staged the real insurrection by certifying a fraud-ridden election. It accuses then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi of, quote, security lapses under a heading titled, quote, Capitol Police Response Escalates Tensions. Officers are said to have, quote, aggressively fired tear gas, flashbangs, and rubber munitions into crowds of peaceful protesters. This is in line with Trump's comments on this 5th anniversary, portraying the president as a dove who repeatedly called for peace and tweeted support for law enforcement and released a video telling supporters to go home in peace on that day. Again, this violent mob storming the Capitol, they were told by Trump to fight like hell to stop the certification of a fair election. And after this happened, in the week that followed, as you know, Trump faced the most bipartisan presidential impeachment in U.S. history. 10 Republicans crossed party lines to condemn his actions on January 6th. I mean, he came close to actual removal. So I ask you not only about the reconstituting of events on the White House website, as we've just sort of visited, but also the reconstituting of politics and the political culture in America with the denialism, the conspiracy theories that's grown essentially, I think, out of that event. That was an inflection event in creating a disconnect with facts that will allow you to get away with so many of the things that those protesters got away with and indeed were pardoned for on January 6th.
It's 1984. Just read George Orwell's book. It's the complete rewriting of history. It's on the White House website. This is not something that can be dismissed. Donald Trump is rewriting history, and he feels he has the power to do it. And I will tell you, I agree with him. If the Democrats take control of the House, there will be investigations, there will be impeachment filings, all the rest. Because what Donald Trump has done, and I want to be very careful in my language, is an abomination and deserves the castigation of all thinking Americans, and you are correct, and I know you have the collage somewhere, of all the Republican leaders who, after that event 5 years ago, condemned what happened and put it squarely where it belongs with Donald Trump. But I want to tell you, I had a conversation.
Well, I have one thing that you might be interested in just because you called for it. Albert, do you have Rubio on January 6th? Marco Rubio, who is now the leader of the parade into Venezuela, running the Department of State.
Secretary of State and National Security Advisor to the President.
Here is Marco Rubio and his comparison of the January 6th insurrection to the military coup in Cuba. Go ahead.
Police officers, the men and women that we walk by every single day that guard the doors and we say hello to, out there with riot gear, getting spit on and attacked. Today, not 10 weeks ago, just a few hours ago. And I think it's important to think about all those things on a night like tonight and everything that's happened. You know, I wouldn't even be here today. I doubt very much where I would even have been interested in politics had it not been for my grandfather. He died when I was 14, but I grew up at his knee. He would sit on the porch, he would smoke 3 cigars a day, and he loved history. He was born in 1899 in rural Cuba. It was still governed by the United States. It was a protectorate. 3 years later, it gained its independence and became a republic. During my grandfather's first 60 years of life, he saw his country have an armed insurrection after a contested election, multiple presidents go into exile, 2 military coups, and the rise of a Marxist dictator. A tyranny that stands to this day. My entire life, I have lived with and next to people who came to America because their country was chaotic and their country was unsafe. What I saw today, what we have seen, looks more like those countries than the extraordinary nation that I am privileged to call home. We had police officers, the men and women that we walk by every single day that guard the doors and we say hello to.
So you hear what he's saying, and what's so interesting to me and ironic is that this is a guy who, as you just heard, his country fled an American-installed leader in Cuba. Wasn't Batista just that? And Rubio ends up here, and of course the rise of the Marxist dictatorship to which you've referred, and now he's involved in the decapitation of Venezuela, and again, the reconstitution of what happened on January 6th. He's now all in with this president across the board, both on foreign policy and on varnishing the reality of the history of January 6th.
It's appalling. It's terrifying. And I know we have limited time, but I also want to point out what is happening in the Department of Health and Human Services. The fact that 5 Democrats who are governors of great states, their funding is being cut by this administration. Don't dare tell me, as some have, that this is not an administration filled with retribution and revenge. What is happening to my country, to our country, is so appalling on every level. And it must be fought as vigorously as we can. So I am looking forward to the midterm elections. And I am looking forward to the Supreme Court, which I hope will take a stand on the question of tariffs. But the most important single thing is Donald Trump will be recorded in history as the most corrupt, the most arrogant, the most disgraceful president this country has ever had.
Speaking of political retribution, Albert, play Mark Kelly, a little bit of Mark Kelly, who's kind of trying to push back on this effort. Pete Hegseth, who is the, as you know, Secretary of Defense, has begun this effort. I guess it's a 45-day process of stripping Mark Kelly of a title, stripping of a government pension. It's really disgusting. Here is a little bit of Mark Kelly pushing back.
The president has gone too far. Everybody needs to wake up. The occupant of the Oval Office is ignorant to the Constitution and has no regard for the rule of law. Trying to silence me, in proposing to court-martial me, in threatening to kill me for fighting back when our democracy demands that we must fight back. President Trump has crossed the line. And this time, it's not going to work. I will not be intimidated by this president. I am not going to be silenced by this president or the people around him, because I've given too much in service to this country to back down to this guy. In 1991, when Donald Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, I was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. In 2001, after Donald Trump said that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, I was carrying flags honoring 9/11 victims into space on a rocket ship. In 2003, when Donald Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein, I was the first on the scene to recover the bodies of my fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. In 2011, when Trump was hosting a reality show and peddling conspiracy theories against President Barack Obama, I was sitting next to my wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. My point is this: I've been through a lot worse in service to my country. The president and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence me. They aren't going to keep me from speaking out, and they're not going to keep me from doing my job. The president.
So
that should be the commercial when he announces he's running for president.
Yeah, and clearly that's the one thing that he benefits from. I mean, I'd suggest that sadly, the full heft of the U.S. government brought down on you is a really nasty thing to deal with, and I don't know that he can effectively fight back against it, even though it's a righteous battle, obviously.
He's going to sue. Let me tell you, they're trying to reduce his rank, and they're trying to reduce his pension. That's what Pete Hegseth is doing. And Mark Kelly has said he is going to go to court. Every legal authority I've talked to has said to me that if he goes to court, he will win. And that will be another blow at Donald Trump. But does everybody understand the danger we face from a president of the United States and his advisors and helpers, including Hegseth, including Rubio, including Miller, who bring disgrace upon American democracy? Now, you know, Mark, if you and I were on KGO instead of on the internet, there might be those who would say we should be fired or our radio station should be shut down. And given the fact that the FCC is now run with a heavy hand of a Trump approach, that might have happened. But I can tell you this, and it's why I'm always glad to appear with you on Wednesdays. We will not be silent. I will not go quietly on this. And may I tell you, I think what Donald Trump has done is to elevate Mark Kelly and his candidacy for the presidency.
Most certainly. Let me ask you quickly in my last minute about the thuggery that defines the ICE agents who occupy various cities and communities, and this latest incident in which an ICE agent shoots an unarmed woman, 37-year-old woman in Minneapolis. Can you speak to that?
Look, somebody asked me the other day whether I'm in favor of abolishing ICE. I said no. ICE serves a constructive purpose when it is handled properly. You don't destroy an agency that is effective in so many ways on so many levels because of the management dictated by Donald Trump. So my answer is, what ICE is doing now, well, I'm always reminded of Abe Ribicoff, the late senator from Connecticut, and his comments to the Democratic National Convention of 1968. Gestapo tactics are being used. And make no mistake, as somebody who is a Jew, as somebody who is a Holocaust scholar, and I am, someone who chaired for a quarter of a century the Holocaust Memorial here in San Francisco, for me to use that expression takes a lot. When an ICE agent can kill a woman in her car, when a pregnant woman can be dragged through the streets, when all of these things can happen, and there is a deafening silence by the Republicans, may the wrath of the voter come down upon them in November. And I can assure you that that is, I believe, what will happen.
And indeed, the tactics of ICE agents are not popular, by the way. I mean, the border policy is popular, but the tactics of ICE, not popular. So some of what John's talking about, it will be reflected in the vote. You know, I'm not a big one for the institutions. Rothmann and I go around and round on this. You know, I don't have a lot of faith in the institutions. I don't have a lot of faith in the voters.
Right,
I don't have a lot of faith in
right.
Right. But that said, I do think it's worth noting. I do want to, you know, be fair and say that this stuff that you see is not popular. It is not supported in the main, and it reminds me a bit of the pictures that used to come out of Vietnam. That's what changed the public's mind in a huge way. I mean, I think the public wasn't into Vietnam to begin with, but really created a supercharged anti-war movement. It was the window that one saw on what was really happening in Vietnam and the futility of the struggle and the bloody nature of it. And in this case, I think you're seeing the cruelty, the wanton cruelty, the gratuitous cruelty, the deliberate cruelty, and the thuggery of ICE. And that is not playing well with the American public.
Let me tell you, if there were a Walter Cronkite, a Huntley Brinkley, a real news process in this country, the outrage would be unbelievable. One more thing before we go, and I know you've limited my time. Disgraceful, but you've got it. I want to say I couldn't resist. I want to say a word about vaccines.
Yes,
what
sir.
This administration has done on the question of vaccines will plague the next generation and the generation after. And I hope that all of the things that the Trump people have done and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that will all be reversed in the next administration. I went back and reread Tatiana Schlossberg's essay, which everyone should read, condemning what her first cousins have done in terms of this. This, to me, is a national disgrace. When I no longer feel, Mark, that I can turn to the CDC to get constructive advice on vaccines, when I see a measles epidemic erupting in this country, when measles were vanished from this country in 2000, when I see all of that, I cannot remain silent. What we need is an alert public involved in all of this. And Kennedy's changes to the pediatric vaccine schedule, among other absurd statements by the Department of Health and Human Services, must also be battled. We have such limited time, so I'll close with this. I think what you do is so important, and I want to urge people to subscribe to your program. It is important that Mark Thompson have the support to continue doing what he's doing. And so I want to urge all of our listeners who believe that this is the right path to spread the word about what Mark Thompson is doing, to support this podcast. And I hope, Mark, that you have nothing but great success in the new year. And by the way, that goes for Kim McAllister too.
Oh, that's very sweet, John. Well, John's podcast can be found around the political world with John Rothmann on a daily basis. And he also can be found at thevoicesf.org, thevoicesf.org. If you want to, again, drink in the magic that is Rothmann, you can do it every stinking day. And the Voice of San Francisco, thevoicesf.org is another place you can do it. Brother Rothmann, we'll talk next Wednesday, and thank you always for being here.
Happy New Year, and thank you, Mark.
John Rothmann, everyone. Right on, right on, right on. I just press buttons here, Albert. That's what I do.
Smash it with your iron rod.
See, just like that.
I come from regular stock.
There's a reason that this place is fun. Don't ever use that word.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
What you say is the political dogma that they're trying to shove down our throats.
Straight up right in, no problem.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Cuatro años más.
I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Say what?
Do you have a secret talent?
You get nothing. Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Did you really just do that?
Right on, everybody. Thank you for being here. That's an oldie. An oldie, but a goodie. Glad you could be with us and do strike the, a hit to...
Smash it with your iron rod.
Do that. Michael Reagan, the eldest son of Ronald Reagan, passed away. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
He was 80. He was a conservative commentator and well known to some of my colleagues who do talk radio because he was a talk radio host. So apparently he died on January 4th in Los Angeles. It's a heavy day in Los Angeles just because I'm mentioning Los Angeles, and we feel quite heartbroken over what happened a year ago. It seems like it was longer ago maybe to many of you. The deadly series of wildfires that raked through the LA area, claimed the lives of 31 people, destroyed homes and communities and livelihoods. I believe, Kim, there is a series of commemorative rallies and also rallies that reflect a kind of activism around what they want in political leadership, which is change. They feel as though there was real administrative failure, and that administrative failure is just part of the story. In LA, they feel as though, in large measure, the administrative failures were covered up after the failures occurred. So there's, the despicable reality, which is that some of this could have been stopped or mitigated or in some way avoided. And yet at the same time, these revelations about how those things could have been avoided and those failures, those revelations are also accompanying revelations about there being a cover-up, and essentially government officials and these after-action reviews, et cetera, reveal a lot more than just that.
I was reading an article in Politico about the political fortunes of LA Mayor Karen Bass and how right after the fire, there were a lot of fingers being pointed at her for mismanagement, dropping the ball, not serving the people of Los Angeles well in the case of the Eaton and the Palisades fires. But then Trump came along and sent ICE agents into the Los Angeles area, and her political fortunes changed as she stood up against him. And so people have backed off of calling for her removal. So interesting.
Yeah, it's true. I would have thought that it was almost not even survivable for Karen Bass after the fire. She wasn't here, I'll remind you. She wasn't in Los Angeles. She was in Africa, associated with some kind of ceremony that she'd been asked to participate in by Joe Biden. But the historic nature of the Santa Ana winds, think of it sort of like a big storm. I mean, it is a windstorm, and it was a multiple-day event. You knew it was happening. That is to say, there were days out forecasts on it. And I kind of put it in the context of a storm because if you knew there was a major snowstorm, let's say, hitting Chicago, and you were the Chicago mayor, you may have to put off a trip, even though the president asked you to make it. Now, again, she didn't and wasn't there and owns on some level the stink that's associated with that. Subsequently, there are revelations about different things that were done or not done associated with the fire department putting out a fire that had been ignited a week prior and hadn't fully been extinguished. And it's believed, I think now, and this is an extraordinary thing to me, like at the time, I didn't think it possible that you could have this sort of conflagration result from a fire that had been put out a week prior, but there were sort of embers still burning. But that's exactly what happened. And it suggested that there was a dropping of the ball by LAFD as well. So hopefully Angelenos will still be voted. Hopefully Angelenos will still
vote her out.
Vote her out, I guess Jim Shields means, as she's been incompetent since her time in the legislature. That's about Karen Bass. And so, Mark, that was a once-in-a-lifetime event, says Citizen Morgan, not Mayor Bass's fault. And that's sort of the counter-narrative, right, that you've just heard there. I'm not suggesting it wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime event, although I'd suggest that more of these once-in-a-lifetime events seem to be happening as climate change has pretty much supercharged the atmosphere, as you know, in many ways. But there are still better ways to handle once-in-a-lifetime events. And on some level, I would say, just to be fair, if you knew that there was, maybe you didn't know it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, but you knew it was a serious, on some level, unprecedented Santa Ana event sustained over a 3-day period, you may not want to leave town. I'm just saying, if you're mayor, it's a bad look. If she talked to me, I would have said, you got to cancel it. Got it. Apologize to him. There are other people to go. So this is why politicians pay a political price for stuff like this. Google the mayor of Chicago. Google the Chicago reference I made before. Read about it. Read about how a mayor dropped the ball on Chicago's snowstorm. It was in the 70s, okay? That's how long ago it was. And the mayor dropped the ball, and you could even do the same thing that was just done here. Say, well, the mayor had limited control. I mean, it was just a major snowstorm hit Chicago. Well, guess what? It happened on his watch. And as a result, he didn't have a chance to win as mayor again. He was thrown the door, and it ushered in, I believe, and I forget her name. What was her? A woman who took his place, the mayor of Chicago. One of you know, maybe. But anyway, the point is the change in leadership was all as a result of the snowstorm. So I was in that Chicago snowstorm during that snowstorm, says what the sizzle. Wow.
Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot was her name.
Lori Lightfoot, yeah, impressive. Anyway, that's a little bit of what's happening in Los Angeles, and as I say, it's a dark day, and they're trying to rebuild these communities, but it might take generations for these communities to legitimately be rebuilt. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have Bill Black coming up. I think he should be here shortly. Isn't that right, Kim? Don't I?
Yeah, I just resent the link because I don't see him waiting down below in our waiting room. But hopefully he'll make his way here because there's been a cash infusion into Wall Street banks going on since October, uncovered by DCReport, co-founded by David Cay Johnston. And there are issues that we want to ask our economist, Bill Black, about.
Exactly.
Figure out what's happening with the banks and how it could affect us and the economy.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine a better guest than Bill Black on these issues. But, he wrote that book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. And he was the whistleblower and was the federal thrift regulator involved with the Keating Five. I mean, that the whole SNL House of Cards, he was a critical link in it all. And he's become persona non grata because in Washington, because the guy, he brought down our scam kind of thing. But hopefully Bill will make it, and if not, we'll reschedule him. I did want to follow up on the Minneapolis shooting. As you know, ICE agents opening fire on a woman in her car today. The mayor of Minneapolis did take to the microphones to make a statement. Albert has a bit of it now. Go ahead, Albert.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
Oh my.
We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave. It's on you to make sure that further damage, further loss of life and injury is not done. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now. And justice is what we've all got to get.
That's stating it bluntly and truthfully. It's just what we said from the beginning. The concocted reasons that ICE goes in. Remember the concocted reason that the National Guard went in? To quell the unrest in these Democrat cities, Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland. At least the National Guard had some training. There is a sense in general, I would say, up until this point, that the National Guard has built in a trained restraint. ICE is made up of thugs. Think Proud Boys. Think J6ers. They are thugs. They have lowered the standards for who they employ at ICE. They have offered incentives to get these frat boys off the couch and onto the streets. And it's disgusting. And they can't wait to pull the trigger. They can't wait to throw down some guy working at a car wash. They can't wait to throw down some waitress who's a Somali immigrant who's just trying to make a living here. Now, should the laws be followed? Of course. If you uncover lawlessness, it should be handled. I'm not against deportation of these people if that's reflective of the kind of fraud and lawlessness that they claim. But this is nothing more than a flex. When Kristi Noem goes in and she's present at one of these arrests, brings cameras with her, and then beats a quick route to the airport where she gets on the private jet that we funded and flies back to Washington. Well, you realize just the opportunism of this. It's a messaging opportunity. And what she's left behind, 2,000 ICE agents itching to pull the trigger. It's horrifying.
To update the story, a couple of new details. The spokesperson from ICE is describing this incident as an act of domestic terrorism on the part of the woman that was killed. And also, the protesters are now hitting the streets in Minneapolis. They are throwing snowballs at ICE agents. And as a result, law enforcement has deployed pepper spray and tear gas against the protesters. So this is turning into quite an incident on the streets as well with protesters.
Turning into Chicago
yeah.
is what I thought you were going to say, which is kind of what they had to do. Remember Chicago, they come in, they rappel from Black Hawk helicopters into into apartment complex where most people are, just sleeping. You have kids, 9-year-olds on the street, zip tied and put onto a curb. I mean, this is just a flex. These guys who fetishize this kind of thing. It's like we play this in video games. Now we get to actually do it. It's just disgusting. There's no threat to the public in Minneapolis that has to be handled this way. The threat to the public, as we learn, is really from the ICE thugs. So now they get what they want. They get unrest. This is what Trump wants, an excuse, says Russ. And I think there's some truth to that. So, look, it's the disturbing inevitability, and it's nauseating. It's nauseating. But it is, again, it's Orwellian, right? You get this unrest because you stir the pot so you can get it, and then you point to that unrest as the reason that you're there. This is the moment. Is that the moment, Albert?
Yeah, this video's been circulating. Somebody sent it to me on Twitter as well. But yeah, this is the incident.
So this is the actual moment, those on YouTube watching, that the gun was discharged and they fired into the car. It looked like she was going around. Is that what was happening? Let me see what was. Or no, is that the ICE vehicle? Is her car the white one, or is it that one? Is that one pulling away?
Yeah, it's the one that's pulling away, and you can see that there's an officer that is in front of the hood with a gun.
Let me see.
After she started.
Yeah, to the left. He's not in front of the hood. He's like on the left front fender. She pulls away, and that's when he fires the weapon?
Yes.
Jeez. This is incredible. How do these guys live with themselves? I'm serious. How do you live with yourself after you do that? You just killed a 37-year-old woman? Unarmed? You know there was no real threat to you? Who are these people? Who are these people? She was leaving the area. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I'm just reading some of the comments. Yeah. Were 4 shots fired? I didn't realize that. That's what the sizzle's saying. Is that right?
It's kind of hard to see from that video. I kind of see one bang, but I don't know. There may be some.
I saw a couple. I'm just trying to turn the audio down so we don't get demonetized.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to get the video for you, but we have to be careful. The ICE agent on the left fender was the one who shot the woman. She was attempting to drive away. Yeah. Attempting to drive away is not the reason you shoot somebody, right? That's the threat to your life, that she was driving away? Really?
Well,
that's going to be a tough one.
They claim that she was using her car as a weapon and driving it at them. They say that this is a case of her engaging in domestic terrorism. That's what they are saying at this time.
Sure, because they can play the domestic terrorism card just as they do in so many different instances. I've told you, from anyone they really want to nail, they use domestic terrorism. They could do that here. They could, they could claim fomenting of unrest. Mark, this is what they live for, says Nellifidian. I would say this: the idea somehow that ICE agent will be held to account. We know that that's not true, and this is what I was talking about. And I've spoken about this repeatedly for a reason. I talked about it in relation to January 6th. I talked about it yesterday. That all of those bad actors, Proud Boys, 3%ers, the thugs of ICE who make these decisions to shoot a 37-year-old woman behind the wheel of her car unarmed, they all know that as long as they're acting in the name of Trump or in the name of the policies of this administration, they'll be pardoned and they'll be protected. I mean, could he stand trial for murder? They're quickly trying to cobble together the story about how she's a domestic terrorist and he was threatened for his life, etc. But we'll ask David Katz on Thursday. He's a federal employee, so you could argue that a federal pardon could get him off the hook. And that would be something that Trump would provide. The other thing that I would say was, well, it happened on the streets of Minnesota. Isn't he on some level? So this is the entire thing, if you're watching now.
Yeah, it looked like they
thing.
approached her, so.
Yeah. They boxed her in, and then as she drove away, they shot her. This is disturbing in the extreme.
Yeah.
So in any case, could Minneapolis laws hold this officer to account? I don't know. We'll ask David Katz. But I would think that he could be arrested and charged on a state level. But as a federal employee, I'm guessing Trump can get him off the hook. Rev P says the state can arrest him. Well, if the Rev says it, got to be true. That's the situation in Minneapolis. It's the thuggery of ICE. And we talk about it here again and again because it's pure lunacy. It serves no coherent strategy because there isn't any coherent strategy. You can crow about the border and having shut the border down, but now you're just shutting down America. You're shutting down the economics of America. You can say, oh, Mark, please stop with the drama. No, I mean it. The economy of America is driven by a robust presence of these people who work in agricultural fields, they work in slaughterhouses, they work at car washes, healthcare, hospitals, schools, childcare. There is a tremendous dependence on this community. So getting rid of all these people is going to hobble portions of the economy straight up. All right. I don't see Bill, so now I'd love a little news from Kim, and then I will jump to Belinda, who will give us a bit of the news of the environment. She's been away for about 3 weeks, so it'll be good to check back in with Belinda Weymouth, who is our eco-journalist. Smash the like button if you would. We'll keep you posted on this Minneapolis situation. We shared the video with you, and we'd be happy to give you any details as we get it all in. Once again, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our show. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there is a new video. We are a live show on YouTube from 2 hours, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 to 1 in the West. And if you haven't yet, please consider being a Patreon or PayPal subscriber. That really is the way we stay on the air. And you can find links to both under all of our videos, Patreon and PayPal. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. As Mark mentioned, protesters are hitting the streets in Minneapolis. This after a woman was shot and killed by ICE during an operation in that city. The Department of Homeland Security says the woman was protesting ICE when she allegedly rammed her car into federal agents. But the Democratic mayor of Minneapolis, whom we just heard from, is disputing that, saying the woman was fleeing the scene. Well, the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, is adding the state will make sure the investigation into this killing is full and fair. DHS says the incident is an act of domestic terrorism. Video shows an SUV with a bullet hole in the windshield, and the car crashed into a light pole in the aftermath of this shooting. Residents are gathering in the street, as mentioned, throwing snowballs at ICE agents. As a result, law enforcement deploying pepper spray and tear gas. The Trump administration says the latest seizure of 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela is having its intended effect on the Venezuelan government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says current Venezuelan leadership is asking now to work with the United States to get that oil back. Rubio says that's a positive outcome because it shows leadership knows the only way Venezuela can move forward and generate revenue is to cooperate with the Trump administration. By the way, Mark, I don't know if you saw the statement that Trump made about the 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil to be sold at market prices. He said he will control the money.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
He will control he said, I will control the money to make sure that best is done for the American people.
I will control it as president of the United States. That's what he said, as president of the United States.
Yeah.
As your favorite president.
What does that mean? Does that mean we're going to get a bigger ballroom because he has even more money now? I don't know.
I'm sure he'll be taking care of the people of Venezuela and the people. We're all getting so rich. We're all winning.
Concerns about that? I don't know. President Trump says he is urging Congress to codify his plan to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes. In a Truth Social post today, the president said people live in homes, not corporations. Trump called buying and owning a home the pinnacle of the American dream. In Southern California, Nick Reiner's arraignment on murder charges delayed after his attorney unexpectedly withdrew from the case. Reiner, whose arraignment was scheduled for this morning, will now be represented by a public defender. The dietary guidelines for Americans getting a bit of a shakeup. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s plan aims to completely cut out added sugars, prioritize protein, push vegetables and fruit, and reduce the intake of highly processed products, eat more whole foods, and end the war on saturated fats. He says with this announcement, the old lies from the government about what really is healthy and what are healthy foods will stop. So.
Yeah, look, that's obviously a good way to go. But, that doesn't in any way, just because he's smart about that. Thank you, Michael Reich. You're so terrific with a $30.27. $30.27. Caught me off guard. I need a bigger bag. Yeah, right. It's all just that. Thank you, though, Michael Reich. Really generous of you for the super chat. Just because he comes up with one statement about the American diet that is right on doesn't in any way permit the lunacy that comes out of dismissing scientists and highly competent researchers from the CDC and from so many of the scientific communities that fall under his control. He is a despicable addition to the U.S. government, and he sadly fits right in with the rest of the just despicable a-holes that are running everything right now.
I know we have Belinda Weymouth in Waiting in the Wings. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Obviously, as Mark has mentioned, incredible coffee, but I don't think it gets mentioned enough, Mark, that their tea is just as incredible as well.
The tea is incredible.
I really think so. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Scan the website, take a look at the tasting notes, see if there's anything that appeals to you. And if there is, which I'm sure there will be, please enter the code at checkout, MARKT, no spaces, MARKT. That gets you 10% off of your total at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
What a pleasure to welcome her back. Belinda Weymouth is our eco-journalist, and we talk to her in a segment that we do regularly every Wednesday, in fact. We look at the environment. Sadly, it's forgotten amidst all the other madness, but it's maybe the most important thing that we talk about on this show. We do it in a segment called It's the Planet, Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid. No. It's the planet Stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid, eco-journalist Belinda Weymouth. Happy New Year.
Hello. Happy New Year to you. How are you?
I am always better for you being here, and you were away for a little while. And I see all of these stories about the environment. Every time I see something about the environment, I think of you. What have you brought us today?
Okay, well, what I've brought everyone today, and I missed you too, just so you know, Mark. I missed you, I missed the gang, I missed our audience. So it's lovely to be back. And I've got a little New Year's resolution that we could all do that would help us with one of the pollutants we have in well, it's really everywhere. We're breathing it, we're drinking it in the water, we're eating it in our food. Yes, people, I'm sorry, it's plastic. But here's the thing. And you can do the thing about the things I'm going to suggest and what we're going to talk about today. You can do as little or as much of it as you want. I know that Kim is going to be a big adopter of everything I mentioned today.
Oh,
so
wow,
thank you,
that's
Kim.
nice.
Yeah, Kim has a real thing about plastic pollution, and I do too, because
What?
it's crazy and it's everywhere. Yeah. Mark, not so much.
Oh, really?
Right?
I don't know how I got, I'm the real environmentalist here. I think
Yeah.
you guys are all posers, and somehow you created a profile that I'm the poser. This is very, very, this is very 1984, what you're doing to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Super 1984. No, I think you have real environmental concerns, and I think you're really looking at the bigger picture and what's going on politically. And I think the plastic thing, I think it's definitely on your radar, Mark.
But you think it's
on
more
your
day to
radar.
day. You're saying Kim is more of that was a good attempted save, though. I will give you that.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. No.
Anyway, we are being inundated by these microplastics. I know that.
So here's the thing: since 1990, the ingestion, our rate of ingestion of plastics has gone up 6 times. We have so much plastic everywhere, and we now know, it's in our eggs, it's in the yolk of the egg, it's in the white of the egg, it's in our salt, and of course it's in our salt because we get it from the sea, and the sea is, so much plastic pollution ends up there. It's in our blood. Yes, it's in our bones. It's in the air that we're breathing. It's, raining down on us. And it's crazy because the other thing that's really hard about it is plastic is unbelievably versatile and useful. And now it's in everything, it's just everything. So what I'm going to talk about today is the kitchen and, our water, our food, what we're drinking, and just point out a couple of easy things if you want to reduce the amount of plastic that you are ingesting. And this is a give or take, but guys, if you could just do a couple of them. So the big thing about plastics is that when they're heated up, there's a lot more shedding. And I've said before on the show, oh my God, I love this comment. Aren't the Kardashians 90% plastic? Okay, I'll address that in another moment. But here's the thing. Plastic is like our skin. It's always sloughing off little bits. And they're really, really tiny. So a microplastic is less than 5 millimeters, but there are things called nanoplastics. They are thinner than a blade, than a strand of hair. I mean, you just can't even see them. And what's crazy is like a one strand of hair. I'm going to try not to do too many numbers, but I think this is interesting. So a strand of hair is 80,000 to 100,000 nanometers thick. But the nanoplastics that are ending up in our, everything, they come in at 1 to 1,000 nanometers. So they're really, really tiny.
They're 10%. They're 90% smaller than a strand of hair. Then, right?
Well, even more, because if you're going down to 1,000, from 100,000, so a hundredth of a blade of a strand.
All right, believe me, it does pencil out. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Very nice math. Nice
I was
math,
told
Mark.
there wouldn't be any math on the test.
Yeah. But you aced it. You aced it right away. So you should be feeling good. We're going to give you a gold star. So here's the thing.
So you're saying these super small pieces,
they're
90%
super
smaller
tiny.
than even a human hair.
Yeah, human hair. But the problem is they build up, and I love that you've put up a picture of a bottle. So thank you, Albert, because everyone got this idea that bottled water was better for us than tap water. Well, that's absolutely not true. Bottled water and also, unfortunately, our tap water both have plastic in them. But a bottle of water, every time you unscrew to take a sip and screw on, you're releasing over 500 microplastics into every liter of water that you've got.
Wow, that's a wild statistic.
And this, and how we ever thought that, having that plastic, and that we need to walk around with a bottle of water all day long. But of course, now we have great stainless steel options. So go for the stainless steel option rather than the bottled water. And here's a really important thing to know about the water that comes out of your tap or faucet, as we like to say in America. So you just need to put a little, even a simple carbon filter that you can put on a pitcher of water. We also call those pitcher of water. Even a little carbon filter on that will reduce the microplastics that are in that jug of water by 90%. So get a water filter on your faucet. If you're using, if you put your water in a jug on the table, get one of those little carbon filters, use that. It's a special kind of pitcher, and you're going to reduce it by 90%. So those are two things.
Is it possible, Marcelo or Mark Elliott, is asking, is it possible to completely filter out the plastic from our drinking water, to completely filter it out? Probably not, I guess.
Well, I think the more elaborate, filter that you have on the faucet in your kitchen, the better. And I think the thing is, it's so ubiquitous now. It's sort of impossible. We live in this is what we live in. We live in a sort of a soup of toxics and plastics. But if you do these simple things, and one of the really important things to know is that you never, ever heat up food or drink a drink. If you drink a drink out of a disposable plastic cup, you're drinking plastic with it. So don't do that. Don't heat up any food, any liquid in a plastic container in the microwave, because all that's going to do is shed plastic into it. And I know that you were talking about tea and coffee right before we started. So tea bags have plastic in them. They're sealed with a plastic sealant, and they put billions of microplastics in.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Coachella Valley coffee tea.
Yeah,
they have tea there that is completely loose leaf. They do not. You don't use plastic at all.
Right.
They have the plastic if you want it, but it's easily right there on the site at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And this is magnificent loose leaf tea, so you do not have to do the tea bags at all.
I have a stainless steel that I put the loose leaf tea in, so I have a little tea. But also they sell tea bags at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com that don't have the plastic, that they look like kind of organic linen.
Yeah.
So they're really, really good.
Yeah, they're very, they're high end. We don't just.
No, I know. I'd love to get me some of that.
Anyway, just want to make the point. Also, as long as we stop Phineas is noting that I'm writing this all down. I am writing this all down, and I think so far I've got a lot to. With the carbon filter and some of this other stuff, I've got a lot to get on. But go ahead.
But and the thing about it, these are all simple. Like I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for us guys. Like to just do these simple things that will, lower this ingestion rate. And the loose tea is super important. And then, like you're saying, Kim, you use a metal filter. It's all about using as much glass and stainless steel as you can in the kitchen. So, I store food. I've got these great glass containers, but they've got plastic lids. Well, I make sure that the food, I never put the lid on when the food is warm, and I never fill up the container enough that it's going to touch the plastic.
No, that's very good. That's very good.
And here's the other thing, guys. I hate to say this, you're not going to I'm going to be unpopular, but all those plastic lids, all the cooking things that you use in the kitchen that have plastic, whether it be a spatula, a silicone whisk or whatever, don't wash those in the dishwasher. Wash them by hand, because obviously in the dishwasher it's hot water, and so it's going to be sloughing off little bits of plastic, and they're going to end up on your plates and your cups. So just do the plastic things by hand. Everything else, the glass, the stainless steel, that can go in the dishwasher.
I had a big thing, Belinda, about not ever putting any plastic in the dishwasher. Anything plastic gets washed by hand. And then one day I realized, the thing that you put your silverware in, it's totally made of plastic. It's like, so all this time that I've been trying not to put plastic in the dishwasher, and there's a thing in the dishwasher that's plastic. But I wanted to ask you about the carbon filter. Is that if you get your water out of your refrigerator, which you have to replace the refrigerator filter, water filter every, I don't know, however many, 3 months or whatever it is that sufficient? Or are you talking about an extra type of filter?
No, that would be better. That I'm just talking about a pitcher that you can buy that has a carbon, has
like
a
a
filter on it.
Brita, like a Brita.
Sure.
Yeah, like a Brita.
Got
So
it.
the one that's in your fridge, and you could, contact the manufacturer and say, what are you filtering for? Some people get these amazing filtering systems outside their homes that do all the water, the shower, everything that comes out of every faucet, they get really big on it. But we have an under the sink water filter that we use, and we drink, the water. We've got a special, this is the filtered water. It does filtered hot water, so I can make, a cup of tea from that. But I would, I don't know brand by brand, how good every fridge is, but
Sure.
I, know that they're definitely going to be getting more than carbon out of the water. And any kind of, filtration system like that. Okay, so we've done the microwave, we've done don't eat things out of plastic, especially if they're hot. Takeout food, I hate to tell you guys, it comes in all that plastic
No, it's
stuff.
awful. It's awful.
Yeah, so you've really got to try not to eat, too much takeout, or get it in the, if they serve it in the really obviously, cardboard, like Sweet Greens gives you a container when you're getting their salads, which obviously is not one of those ones that looks like cardboard, but you can see it's got a lining in it, like a really thin plastic lining to keep it waterproof. And this is the problem is when companies, restaurants are trying to look for alternatives. If they can't be giving you a hot cup, a lovely cappuccino or latte or Coachella coffee in something that's not waterproof. So this is the other thing. It's all the things that line, like my husband loves to get his black beans in an aluminium can. Well, I like to get my black beans in bulk and bring them home and, rinse them before I cook them, because even, an aluminium can, they might be organic beans, but it's going to have a layer, of thin plastic inside it. So it's a little bit tricky.
My favorite Indian restaurant, we order from them all the time. They put this, it's piping hot. I mean, it's insanely hot. Everything in these plastic tubs. And they arrive in the plastic tubs. I just don't know what to do, because every time I can barely hold it. So I know that the plastic's burning off or melting off into the liquid. And so I don't know what to do. Like, do I go down there and go, hey guys, I'm about to order? The whole idea of getting food delivered is that it's being delivered. You know what I mean? And they're not going to, so I guess what you said is true, which is you just have to do less of that. You have to order less takeout if you know it's a situation.
It is. We want to keep the stuff manageable. We can't, make our lives impossible. I used to at Earth Cafe, I would take one of those tip-in containers, 3 separate metal ones, and I would get them to put the soup in it. And they would actually take it into the kitchen and give me takeout soup there. But a lot of places would take your own containers. Because it's a hygiene, it's a food safety issue. So I was lucky that they liked me at my local Earth Cafe, and they would let me do that. So, but it's really hard. So I think the thing is, if in the house, if you're really careful with the microwave, you're careful what you put in the dishwasher, really taking care of the water, the loose tea, and as many fresh food items as possible, because the more processed a food item is, the more things that have been done to it in its production, and all those things, because they all involve some sort of plastic, a spatula, a mixing bowl, I'm talking obviously on a large scale. But the other thing when you're at home is, those things in your kitchen, if you have a plastic spatula, when it's time to replace it, or, anything, those are,
all the plastic and
the plastic, they look cute, but drinks come in them, you make ice in them, all that stuff. I mean,
saying when it's time to replace them, what were you saying?
Well, if you have one of those non-stick fry pans, they're no good because they've got PFAS in them, and that's a plastic lining. And once it gets scratched, then it's really letting go of little pieces of plastic. But replace it with one of those. Either a stainless steel fry pan, or we have those really heavy, what are they called?
Iron skillet?
Yeah, like an iron skillet, and we just put olive oil in it, and I know, guys, you don't want to cook olive oil too hot.
Let me tell you that I was raised
Mm-hmm.
on scratched Teflon pans that my mother used, and she throws nothing out.
Yep.
My mother, if you go back to her house now, it's like a museum. And it's a museum of the crap that I was raised on. And I am telling you, every pan, every pot scratched with that Teflon, It was horrible.
Yeah.
And I go back then, and I just, I get chills when I go back into that kitchen and realize that's what we were raised on. And because she was raised in the Depression, so she didn't want to throw anything out. So like a little scratch on a pan was not enough for her to get rid of it. So.
Yeah. And the other thing also is for our parents' generation, all those things that were easy to clean, that were easy to cook with. I mean, they just, you gravitate towards them because they're fantastic. And now we sort of know the error of our ways, that not everything that looks fantastic, that is fantastically convenient is necessarily good for us. So,
well, Nullifidian says Jesus said that it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles the body, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles the body. I see. That's very good. And did Jesus mention Teflon or any of the other plastic by
was any of that around when he was around? Yeah. So those things in your kitchen that are plastic, when it's time to get a new one, opt for, the stainless steel version, store things in glass if you can. And then one thing that's really interesting is rice. So when you're buying a grain, even if you're buying it in a paper bag, at some point in its life, it's being processed in some machinery that's plastic. And so what you want to do is when you get it home, you want to really wash it, because you will reduce the plastic in a bag of rice, whether it's a paper bag or a plastic bag. You'll reduce the amount of little, these nano and microplastics by 20 to 40%. So always wash stuff, and particularly grains. And don't buy that pre-cooked rice, because that comes in a plastic bag that's already been heated up. Sorry.
I live on that pre-cooked rice. I swear to you, I might have, I don't know, 8 pounds of that stuff every week. But
Are you kidding?
I'm really in trouble. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to call someone to administer last rites as soon as I'm done with this conversation.
No, you don't have to do that. I'm just saying, if there are just the things that are common sense and that you couldn't, you and Courtney could do at home, that would, go, okay, this makes sense to us. But, I don't want anyone to go crazy. I just want to be a little bit helpful, and, we could check in a couple of months and people could tell me, no, Belinda, I did not take that on as resolution.
Well, no, but you've offered us some kind of doable things. We're kind of out of time, but did you wanted to share one other video?
I just have to, there's one, this is so sweet. And there are going to be updates on this little guy. So last April, up in the, where was it? In the Los Padres National Forest, these hikers found this tiny, tiny bear, 2 months old, 3 pounds, fragile, in a terrible, terrible state. They got animal services involved. They got him to the San Diego rehab center. And within 5 weeks, he'd put on 10 pounds. He was learning how to climb. But the cutest thing, and Albert, you have to show the pictures because they're so great. They all wore bear suits when they were around him. So they would put on bear heads,
brilliant.
And they would wear big fur coats. They would rub hay that had the scent of black bears on them, because they cannot let this little guy, look at him. There he is. There's a bear looking after the baby bear.
That's
and the baby
wonderful.
Bear,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, see the little bear climbing up on him.
So that won't be so this little guy won't be acclimatized to to human beings. It's just kind of going, oh, that's just wonderful.
Yeah. So the amount of time, because they had to feed him all through the night, because he was, it was really touch and go. He was so fragile, so tiny, 3 pounds. Minute. Look at how cute he is.
Oh my God.
So he's now up in Sonoma at their wildlife. I've been calling them, but it's really funny because the woman who I spoke to on the phone said, I'm not authorized to give out any information about the bear. It has to be our ED. But she said, go on our Instagram maybe, and you'll see. So they transferred him when he was ready up there, because as well as these adult humans who were looking after him and teaching him the ropes, like, they were burying insects and acorns for him, to learn to find, and he learned to climb. But and they had to cover every inch of their skin. He couldn't be anywhere near the center of their skin, but he has to be around other bears. So now he's up in Sonoma. He's got 2 other bears who he's rehabbing with. And what they want to do is, it's so amazing how kind and amazing we can be. And then he has these little bears to play with. And there's a big stuffed bear who he thinks is his mum and who he lies on. Yeah, the one in the background. That's who he lies on.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's that's a really good bear suit. There's one with a lady who's got the bear head on, and she's sort of wearing a kind of a caramel colored fur coat. She doesn't look that bearish to me, but apparently it worked. And at a year, the plan is for him and for the other 2 bears to be ready to be re-released and to have the skills that they'll need, and not when they see a hiker or any, run up to them and go, oh, hey, I know,
exactly.
You fed me a bottle. But what I'll do is when I get more news of them, and hopefully I could get some photos, and we'll keep tabs on them and see how they're doing, because it's just a few more months now until, his release date.
That is wonderful. That is exactly what we needed to finish this otherwise dark version of our program, with so much news that leaves us downcast, that gives us a little, that was really wonderful. Even I, in my cold, dark heart, am...
I melted you. Oh, look at that one.
Gosh, that's
Mark,
just
can you
such a
stand
cute
it?
little thing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Image is hideous.
Albert.
Yeah, it's really it's a real feel good story, and it's amazing because all the people who work at these centers, they're all volunteers. It's all donation based. They don't get state or federal funding, but they're bringing back raccoons and baby possums. No animal too small to, I'm not crazy about, opossums when they're babies and they have no hair on them, but, they just are devoted, and will stay up with this guy all night long,
Wonderful. Just wonderful. I love it. The best of humanity there.
Yeah, exactly.
Find Belinda Weymouth across social media, Belinda Weymouth, Waymouth, and you can find her here on Wednesdays with It's the Planet Stupid. Thank you, Belinda.
My pleasure.
Happy New Year. That's It's the Planet Stupid.
More
It's the Planet Stupid.
No, it's the planet stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am especially acknowledging our Patreon and PayPal supporters. Thank you for putting it up there, young Albert. Patreon and PayPal is a great way to support this show. Thank you, those who already do and are part of our Patreon and PayPal family and community. And for those who haven't yet, maybe consider it in the new year. Go to themarkthompsonshow.com. Click the Patreon or PayPal link and join our community and contribute whatever you can. And you can also find links to Patreon and PayPal under this and all videos. So it's a very...
What?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty incredible. That's the way they do it now. So it's a very cool thing. Very tough out here in this world of independent media. We appreciate your support.
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
No. So anything you can do to kind of, help a brother out, we appreciate it.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
So please do join us here. I don't know what to say, Albert. We're wrapping up our show.
Where are my weed smokers at?
No, I don't think I need to say that. But let me just acknowledge a couple of folks who buzzed in. Speaking of buzz. Hi from Australia. Shout out to Australia. Glenn B. is one of our viewers in Australia, I didn't think things could get worse, but I was wrong. There is no law. There is no low. I was going to say there is no law and there is no low. Thank you. Yeah, there is no low, Glenn B. You're right. And the lower we are, the lower we are. Bill Black is an hour late. How does that happen?
I must have been a time thing because we're in different time zones, so I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll work that
There
out.
he is.
CC
Maybe-
Ryder says what we talked about, the seizing of that oil tanker. We spoke of that earlier. The Donroe Doctrine, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine too. Indeed. Looks as though that's the case. I like to find sources of information that I can trust. Mark's show is one of them. Mr. Global is another. Mr. Global, who was on with us in hour one. If you haven't heard of Mr. Global, check him out. You'll love the conversation we had, and you'll love all of the stuff that he provides, and he'll be back. And thank you, Randy, for turning me on to Mr. Global. In fact, about Mr. Global, good guest, and Landman is good, says Susan Roberts. Coffee is for closers, says Glenn B., who joins us from Australia.
Put that coffee down.
Exactly. Mark, I'm only here because of Kim. Wow.
What?
Says bald Thanos. Wow. I'm only here because of Kim, so that's two of us, really.
I like bald Thanos.
Ole Hansen says the treaty with Denmark already allows U.S. troops in Greenland. He can just send some more. Nobody told Trump, I guess. Oh, no, you don't get it. He wants ownership. He doesn't care about anything associated with, national security. I want to help the Venezuelan people in the case of Venezuela, the Panama Canal. I want to protect. This is all BS. He wants another trophy to put on the mantelpiece, and the trophy will be Greenland. The Mr. Global interview was excellent, says Murphy Rowan. Cool. If you missed it, go back and check it out. It was in hour one of this show. Stephen Miller looks like Colonel Klink, says just me. Mr. Trump, I'm here for you. If our founding fathers were alive, they'd be turning in their graves. Well, as we've reviewed Nullifidian, if they were alive, they wouldn't be in their graves, so they couldn't be turning in it. But I appreciate. God, this show is heavy today. It's true. Holly Hinman is right. When she's right, she's right.
It reflects what's going on in the world. So yeah.
Trump will desperately try not to let the midterms happen. Martial law, here we come, says Glenn B. I think there will be some maneuvers. We'll see. I love Mark's merch. I love you, Concern for Humans. Thank you. You can find Mark's merch at getmarkmerch.com. Yvonne Beach Bonnie says, hi, y'all. I have wildlife group. Santa Cruz does that for weasels, dresses up like an animal so that the weasels don't get acclimated to humans. It's amazing. Just went to that seminar last month. It really is amazing. I love when humans show their humanity, which we oftentimes don't see a lot of, or it gets crowded out by the humans that are not showing humanity. Right on, Mark, says Gordon. I don't know what that's in relation to, but yeah, I love it. Thank you. You cannot have I guess that means, what is Sports Hat saying? You cannot have unmarked men or armed men in a proper democratic country. Yeah, clearly the arming of these ICE thugs is just, as I've said, it's just awful. I came for the great radio and stayed for the excellent guest, says Holly Hinman. Love you, Holly. And Vilma, who's an OG of the show with a $5 super chat, said, just a small something to support this vital program in what is, in my opinion, a dark political time in our country. I think we'd all agree on that. Thank you, Vilma, and a big shout out to you for being an OG. And Chaplain Fred, a $10 super chat, says, hello, everyone. So where are the Democrats in all of this? ICE, Trump, and the violent illegal kidnapping? If 90% of the U.S. is against what's happening, why do we let 10% continue to do it? Yeah, it's an odd asymmetry to the political power in America, and you're not wrong. It has to do with voting. It has to do with the way political power is apportioned in America. It also has to do with media. And if you look at the media doesn't reflect the kind of lopsidedness that you talk about in terms of public opinion. It actually reflects the kind of lopsidedness there is with the minority opinion and that which doesn't poll well, takeover of Venezuela, ICE agents on the streets, a takeover of Greenland. I mean, fill in the blank. These things are really buried in a lot of ways in the propaganda that is overwhelmingly the media, out of Fox News Channel, out of most of the radio stations in America, talk radio, they're right-wing. Most of them. I mean, overwhelming numbers. Most of the local stations across America are owned by right-wing controlled families or entities. Everything from Sinclair to Nexstar. Look it up. And so you don't see the kind of protest forward coverage that you might see. And that's why independent media is on the rise. Thanks again to Michael Reich for that 3027. And he says, caught me off guard. I need a bigger bag. The grossness of that ICE maneuver in Minnesota. What is your daughter's favorite Coachella Valley tea for wintertime? Asks Murphy Rowan. She asks you, Kim.
Yeah, Julia really, really loves the Coachella Valley coffee English breakfast tea and the chai tea. Those are her two favorites.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go. Asked
Thanks,
and
Murphy.
answered.
Yeah.
Trump's strategy for buy-in from his cult equals just add terrorism to anything: domestic terrorism, narco-terrorism, left-wing terrorism. Hashtag Mad Libs messaging. That's exactly right from Luis.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out, Luis. You are so right. So I was saying before, the minute you hear that, a terrorist, domestic terrorism, yeah, right. I remember veggies boiled in a plastic bag in the late 60s and early 70s. From What's the Sizzle, and What's the Sizzle writes, until the surgeons in the battle surgeons in Vietnam saw pieces of plastic in the soldiers' kidneys and other organs. Then the plastic boiling veggie bags were banned. Wow.
Gross.
Yeah, how far we've come.
I remember those TV dinners. I loved those. Those
oh,
were
yeah.
all
TV
plastic.
it's still like, I hate to say it, but that's what that rice, those bags of pre-cooked rice, oh my God, those are like a TV dinner, but it's just of rice. And they have them for everything. They have curry and they have, but we're getting plastics. I'm here for you, Mark. Last rites, that is, if you need them. Thank you, Chaplain Fred. I was saying, with all the plastic I'm ingesting.
Sayonara, sucker.
Yeah, I could be needing last rites. We'll work it out. Can you write your own last rites like people write their own marriage vows? Don't you think you should be able to write your own last rites?
No.
I think you should be able to. Anyway. Well, we've had one thing revealed to us at minimum in the last few minutes, and that's that Bill Black had the wrong time. But we're going to talk to him in a second, and we'll get him all straight on because we were waiting for him earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I blame, who can I blame on this? Can I blame Kim?
I blame you.
All right. Maybe it's my fault.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't know why I have to take responsibility for everything that happens on this show. It's just,
and I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's a tough room, man. That's all I got to say.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
So what we'll do is we will fall back and regroup.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
We have a huge show tomorrow with David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, coming in. We'll talk about this Minneapolis incident. That ICE officer and ICE agent, can they be pardoned for an act of murder? I mean, that is a real decision that ICE agent made that he may not be able to swim away from. So we will get into that tomorrow with David Katz. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Albert. Thank you all. Thanks to everyone
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Who participated in today's show.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
We're out of time. Thanks, everybody. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.